Well, Zelensky is urging the West to do more. Now, on the sidelines of the D-Day commemorations, he and U.S. President Joe Biden met at a Paris hotel for talks. Biden said that his administration would not walk away from Ukraine. For more, let's speak to Roland Freudenstein from the Brussels Freedom Hub. Hello to you, Roland. I suppose Joe Biden's qualification there that it's his administration would not walk away from Ukraine is probably the right way to qualify it, since U.S. support is up in the air because we have a presidential election in 5 months.
Okay, I would not predict anything for a possible Trump administration, a second Trump administration. But indeed, the signs that we've been seeing are worrying. Trump has claimed that he can strike a deal within 24 hours with Vladimir Putin. He has expressed admiration for the strongman aspects of Vladimir Putin. But he also walked back his statements on revoking Article 5 at NATO. So there are very mixed signals we get. But of course, with a President Biden, if I were Ukrainian, I would sleep much more safely.
Yeah, and now we're also seeing Joe Biden, Emmanuel Macron did it, Volodymyr Zelensky, a lot of comparisons between what's happening in Ukraine today versus what happened 80 years ago. The lessons that we learned from the past, are they still valid today? Have they changed? Do they need to be updated?
No, the core lessons are exactly the same. I would frame them in three questions. First of all, can we still identify lethal existential threats to our freedom? Second, can we still make sacrifices? And that includes, unfortunately, the sacrifice of the lives of our soldiers. And third, can we still unify as free countries and help another free country which is being threatened at the moment? And this is exactly the three questions that were positively answered in 1944, and that will have to be positively answered by us now.
Yeah, and the other difference, of course, back in World War II, we had Allied troops on the ground. A lot of divisions in Europe about how to address Russia's invasion and whether there should be European troops or, much more likely, American troops on the ground there.
Well, I tell you what, if Russia really breaks through the current Ukrainian defense lines and moves towards Western Ukraine, we are going to have Polish, Baltic, and Romanian troops in Ukraine, whether NATO decides anything or not. I mean, this has been predicted by the governments of these countries. And the question will only be, can we make it a unified answer, which will be much more effective? Or are we going to leave those eastern flank countries fend for their own? That's the only question that remains. And for me, the answer is clear. So troops on the ground will be the case as soon as Russia achieves a decisive victory. For the moment, what we're talking about is training more Ukrainian units in Western countries, and that was part of the agreements between the French president and President Zelensky.
Yeah, and we see Ukraine is outmanned, it's outgunned, so this is much needed help coming quickly. Biden apologizing to Zelensky for the hang-up in Washington to get the aid to Ukraine after that 6-month delay, which was largely blamed on Republicans from blocking that aid. Moving forward, when we heard Zelensky speaking in the French parliament today, he said today it's Ukraine, tomorrow it could be other countries. If Russia does make gains in Kharkiv, do you think Vladimir Putin's eyes are on other countries?
Putin's eyes are always on other countries. Putin considers free countries a threat to his own corrupt, authoritarian power in Russia, because we give the wrong ideas to Russian citizens. We prove that democracy is more successful than dictatorship. So, potentially we're all threatened. I mean, Russia is waging a hybrid war against all of the free world right now as we speak. So this may actually escalate on Russia's side into even more, into armed action, for example, against the Baltic states. Why have they removed the border markings between Russia and Estonia recently, if not to threaten us and to actually make it thinkable that they will take armed action against us? So I'm sorry, but whatever happens in Kharkiv, Russia is a threat to any free country in the world as long as Putin is in power.
Yeah, and one of the main criticisms from the West is that it ends up providing what Ukraine asks, but many months later or weeks later. And so it keeps moving the goalposts back. And so there's a game of catch up here. What would you like to see Western leaders do now as efficiently and as quickly as possible to perhaps have a significant change on the battlefield?
Well, deliver state-of-the-art weapons from the existing stock of Western armed forces is the only short-term solution, right? I mean, we have been lagging behind in so many fields, including, for example, aircraft, including state-of-the-art tanks when they could have been really of great use for Ukraine, meaning in autumn, in the fall of 2022. If we had started training Ukrainians on fighter planes right after the beginning of the full-scale invasion, Ukrainian cities would not be hit to the extent that they are, because Ukraine would have F-16s and maybe Mirage 2000 already up in the air, fighting Russian planes that drop these bombs against civilian targets. So these are just two examples. The European Union promised 1 million rounds of ammo within 9 months or so. They got about to 1/3 of that sum. I mean, these are things we should all be apologizing for to President Zelensky. And unfortunately, that includes President Biden. As much as I appreciate him saying we cannot walk away, and as much as I appreciate him actually doing everything to get the assistance package through Congress, he was also one of the people who slowed down Western assistance for Ukraine because he was afraid of escalation.
Yeah, and at the same time, Zelensky's also trying to organize this major peace summit. We're not sure how major it will be if the U.S. doesn't attend, if China doesn't go. So what role does Zelensky have if the Biden administration can't attend to the peace summit?
Wait, so President Biden is not attending,
Right.
but Anthony Blinken is definitely coming. The fact that China is not attending or not even sending a working level delegate, of course, is painful. But frankly speaking, that peace summit is much more of a Ukrainian effort to talk to the global South. And there are 100 countries participating on one or the other levels of hierarchy. So I think it will be a very successful exercise in communication of Ukraine's war of defense against an imperial colonialist power. And the Ukrainians are much better at sending this message to countries of the global South than countries like France, Britain, or the United States.
Roland, thank you very much for your time. Roland Freudenstein joining us from Brussels. Thank you.